How China could become the world's first megapower. World War III fears. We live in an increasingly dangerous and turbulent world. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has triggered concern that Moscow aims to re-establish Soviet-era dominance over Eastern Europe. Meanwhile, China continues to menace Taiwan and has refused to rule out taking control of the island republic by force. Against this background, military and political leaders in the West are warning their populations to prepare for global conflict. The new head of the British Army, General Sir Rowley Walker, says Britain must be ready to fight a war in 3 years' time, in the face of growing threats from an axis of upheaval led by Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. Government and military leaders in Sweden have explicitly told their citizens to prepare for war. And there's no shortage of people urging vigilance against China's military build-up. Ex-Security Chief Mike Pizzulo, for example, has told Australians that the risk of war with China in the next 3 years is rising fast. The West's nightmare is that Russia and China launch simultaneous attacks on Eastern Europe and Taiwan, stretching US and other NATO forces to breaking point. Why Russia and China could go to war. But what if we're looking in the wrong direction, and rather than coordinating their efforts, China and Russia actually go to war with each other? And what if the outcome of any such conflict is the emergence of a hugely more powerful China, indeed the world's first megapower, dominating the global economy and geopolitics for centuries ahead? The prospect of war between China and Russia might seem far-fetched at the moment, given that both countries have declared their friendship has no limits. However, and despite the orchestrated displays of unity and camaraderie put on by Chinese leader Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin, this marriage is strictly one of convenience. Russia gains much-needed Chinese support and material for its war in the Ukraine, and China gets cut-price energy supplies. In 2023, Russia became China's top source of crude oil, supplying 19% of the country's crude oil imports. The two countries are also united by a desire to challenge America's global leadership. But they have little else in common and a history marred by border conflicts and mistrust stemming from ideological and territorial disputes. Despite sharing a communist ideology, the Soviet Union and China split in 1961, competing for control of the worldwide communist movement, and tensions between the two red superpowers lasted for decades. In 1969, a simmering border dispute brought them to the brink of war. People's Liberation Army troops, ambushed by a Soviet unit, killed 58, while China itself lost 29. US officials believe Beijing was trying to provoke Russia into war and speculated that the Soviet Union might launch attacks on Chinese nuclear weapons facilities to halt a Chinese invasion in its tracks. Tensions were eventually diffused, but the territorial disputes between the two countries have never been fully resolved. Moreover, there is huge resentment among the Chinese that Russia now occupies more than 1 million square kilometers of land that once belonged to China. Many Chinese believe that Russia exploited China's weakness back in the 19th century to acquire this territory. Following China's defeat in the Second Opium War, the Qing dynasty was compelled to sign what Beijing continues to label an unequal treaty with Great Britain, France, and the Russian Empire in 1860. The treaty effectively ceded control of Hong Kong to the British, while Russia grabbed Outer Manchuria. Russia thus gained control of its only warm water port on the Pacific coast, Vladivostok, and sealed off Chinese access to the Sea of Japan.